Good evening. I really hope you're coping with this heat that we've been having. The next reason why I think Christianity is so compelling is this: it works. You know, I've heard many people say, being a Christian, it just doesn't make any difference to our lives. It's just a story that you either believe or you don't believe. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. You know, Christianity has been working in the lives of billions of people from all cultures, from all backgrounds, and has transformed billions of people's lives over more than the last 2,000 years. People today can testify that Jesus has changed their lives. I can testify that it works. When I became a Christian, I was just 19 years of age, and I'd suffered with periods of cyclical depression. It just felt like this kind of vicious cycle. And I remember saying out loud at some point, God, if you are real, then you're going to have to show yourself to me. And over time, the Holy Spirit started to reveal just who God really is, and enabled something to change in my heart, something to do with knowing just who I am as a child of God, as a daughter of the one who is the King of Kings, that I'm deeply loved, that I am precious to him, that he intended my life to come into being, that he had a plan and a purpose for my specific life, that I am not alone. And I found peace from the chaos of those dark times and experienced the one who is peace walk right beside me and communicate with me. In those first 3 or so years that followed that decision, my life was utterly transformed. So much so that those who knew me well said that they hardly recognised the person they had previously known. I was just this last week listening to someone else talk about what happened for him when he first met Jesus. His name is Paul. He too described experiencing depression. He was just 17 years old when that first started to happen for him. And at the time, he described finding a little bit of relief, at least initially, from taking drugs occasionally. What he said was that this inevitably led to taking stronger and more addictive drugs, which led to drug dealing, to violence, to gangs, and a significant criminal activity. And he just described that life during that time was out of control. And he did try to get some help. He went to rehab. He had a new prescribed medication that was new at the time. He even spent some time in a psychiatric hospital. And whatever he did, it just didn't help. It didn't make the difference. And that he said that this went on for around 10 years. But one day he was visiting a friend who'd also been involved in the same kind of lifestyle as he. But this day, when his friend opened the front door, he said his friend looked completely different. He just looked, cleaner, somehow just completely different. And he said to a friend, I've come to you to ask you for some help in dealing with somebody. And his friend said, look, I don't do that stuff anymore. I have become a Christian. Paul said that was the last thing he expected to hear from his friend. Paul said he'd had some sort of notion of God, but he felt he was too far from God. He was too bad. There's no way that God would want anything to do with him. And his friend said, God goes looking for people like you. And Paul just sort of described that from that day, his heart slowly became attracted to this God. And he kept taking drugs. But actually, he was becoming sick and tired of being sick and tired. And finally, one day, he was sat in his car and he said, God, if you will do for me what my friend has said you do, if you will forgive me, if you will break my addiction, then I'll serve you forever. And Paul described something changing from that moment. And he went into a residential Christian rehab program, and transformation of his life began. more than just stopping drugs or stopping crime and violence. It was a whole transformation of him as a person. Christianity is so compelling because it works.